1. To start with some context, I'm a student expat in a very overpopulated country. Finding a place to live here is a nightmare, especially being a student and not speaking a local language. I was looking for a new place and got invited into a room viewing. 2-bedroom apartment, small balcony, great location, acceptable price. I loved the place instantly. My housemate, he was also my landlord, was looking for a new tenant as his girlfriend was leaving abroad to continue studying, so I would be getting her room. We had small talk and what kind of tenant I am, what I do, etc. I emphasized that I love being clean, don't leave dishes in the sink, wash floors weekly, collect my hair from the drain, and so on. He was very happy about it, and as according to his words, he was the cleanest in his student house. We left on a good note, and after a week I received a message that I was accepted and could move in from next month. Before leaving, his girlfriend suggested that I buy her old furniture, mattress with the bed frame, a table and chair, for €120. And of course I agreed, as beside the table it was barely used. Only after a month, red flags started showing. Small kitchen with maybe 0.75 square meter total countertop space was always filled with dirty dishes. He washed them once a week at best. His long, thick black hair, I had rainbow-colored hair at the time, was everywhere. My laundry, shower, floors, kitchen sink. You know those desert dust balls? Yeah, we had that made of his hair. Constant poop stains in the toilet that were never cleaned up by him. He would charge his beard trimmer in the kitchen next to the dish dryer rack, and of course after trimming, the bathroom sink would become black. A couple of times I found his nails in the bathroom sink. Basically, you get the picture. I tried speaking with him and reasoning that I am not a part-time maid, I don't mind cleaning, and I love doing it to release energy, but not after someone. After 5 or so months, his girlfriend moved back, as something did not work out with her studies, and I wish I was kidding, but she was even worse. On top of being as nasty as him, she was a woman. Used tampons left on display in the toilet room, and bloody wet underwear hung on the shower were monthly occurrence. Also, at the time I was working as well, so 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. weekdays plus watching recorded theory lectures, yay Rona, on the weekends made me very exhausted and short-tempered. Probably such things would make any person unhappy, but a clean freak like myself, it drove me mad. I snapped, and after the long talk where I really tried to be reasonable, but couldn't stop myself from being passive-aggressive, they seemed to understand and left for a weekend. On Monday, they came back and kicked me out. I had 3 months to leave the apartment. It was the end of the semester, so I could stay in the city looking for a new place and lose the summer, or go home and try doing it online. After about 100 emails, lots of phone calls, and no response, I had almost no hope left. Start of September, I met old classmates, and one of them told me that his girlfriend was leaving her current place, and he could give me the landlady's phone number. So that was sorted out. Now only the moving part was left. If you recall, I bought some used furniture. Table was going to the trash as it was barely standing. Chair I really liked and moved to the new place, and decided to sell the bed with the frame for €120. Invited a couple of people to see it, and was always leaving the bedroom door open so nasty housemates could hear us. The same evening I received a message. So if you would like, we could buy the furniture back for the same price. Nope. Smiley face. I sold it to this very nice lady and explained to her in short why I was selling the bed. Being a good sport, she arrived early morning on Saturday. Housemates at this point were basically neats and sleeping till afternoon. And brought power tools with the loudest scotch tape she could find. It woke them up, and it was a pleasure seeing them grumpy and mad how I was underselling their furniture. The lady who was buying it looked up the bed frame online, and a new one online cost €400. So overall it was a great deal for everyone, besides my old housemates. 2. This happened in 2019, when the infamous last season of Game of Thrones came out. Back then, I was working a shitty customer service job, and because I was a student at the time, had to work late afternoon and night shifts. The company being permanently understaffed, there were usually 2 people on these type of shifts. In this case, yours truly, and the person we will call Shitty McShit, who also worked mostly graveyard shifts. I can write an entire book of stories about them that would showcase the reasoning behind this name, but I'll save that for later. The bottom line is this dude barely ever showed up for work, and when he did show up, he would call his friends from the company phones to keep the line busy or just spend all his time eating and watching movies. Besides refusing to work, this guy was also incredibly rude and entitled. What I know is he came from money, but his parents made him work, and he was not amused. He was 20-ish, if I remember correctly, and threw tantrums like a 3-year-old. Now, night shifts were usually quiet, and both me and him each minded our own business. But it wasn't the entire case that week. Some service was down somewhere and calls were flooding in, to the point where I barely had time to breathe between calls. At some point, I noticed his phone had been disconnected. He's logged off and opened HBO to watch the Game of Thrones season premiere, while hundreds of calls and emails kept coming in. I just go over to him and ask him to please do his damn job. And his response is, "Geez, chill, it won't take long. I just really want to know what happens in this episode." I didn't have time to yell at this idiot, and even if I had, it would have been useless. What I did instead is I went back to my workstation and messaged him what happened through the course of the entire episode, scene by scene, on Slack and email with our team leader CC'd in. He slammed the keyboard and went back to taking calls. It made me feel better, but not good enough. I knew his university schedule wouldn't allow him to watch the episodes right as they came out, so every week I would religiously email him and Slack him a message containing all the spoilers titled Game of Thrones Summary. I hope this helps you concentrate on work. Was it petty and childish? Yes. Was it delicious and beautiful? Also yes. Do I regret it? No. 3. Back in the days of hormone-fueled adolescent awkwardness, I was that nerdy teen that sat in the back and tried to be invisible. Turns out I was suffering from adolescent depression, which has since upgraded to clinical, but I'm thankfully stable now. Long story there. And my mood swings, overreactions, and insomnia made life pretty difficult, despite being smart enough to pull off an A average. Entered Metro, one of a long line of bullies I had been dealing with since preschool. Aren't private schools fun? And this dude was awful enough that I was finally pushed into therapy. Not by choice, mind you. My school counselors literally feared for my life, and almost literally dragged me there. In the interest of keeping this short, the therapist talked me through what Metro was doing to me, and why it was likely happening, and how none of it was my fault. It helped, but it didn't stop the fact that it was harassment, distracting in school, and borderline physical on how Metro would threaten to shove me over or do the stupid "but I'm not touching you" dance that is so popular with annoying, immature kids. Here's the part that shocked me, though. My therapist offered to help me plan some revenge, as my teachers were clearly doing squat. I will forever admire this man for stepping out for a worn teen, but basically what we came up with was this. Ignore the idiot and let him dig his own grave, and if he needed a nudge, I could provide it. Setting, English class, time early afternoon. My English teacher was already on my side because of my various eyesight projects. Shout out here. Still writing my novels, Mr. B. And class participation. And the only ill mark on the class was Metro's attendance. That day was a test on Hemingway's work, and it was nearly the end of the school day, so most kids were more eager for the bell to go off than to actually concentrate. The minute I finished my test, I checked my backpack for snacks, slipped out the sandwich I hadn't finished, and wolfed it down before anyone could see me. Then I started working on my most recent poetry project during the quiet time. Unsurprisingly, Metro, who sat near me, got bored and started trying to get my attention. Usually, I would hiss at him to shut up or leave me alone, but with every ounce of will I had, I ignored him. It felt glorious. he immediately started escalating, whispering and poking me with pencils, to the point that the teacher actually noticed for once and told him to sit down and be quiet or there would be consequences. Metro sat still for maybe 30 seconds before he was at it again, but this time the teacher had to step out for something, so Metro got up and started whispering vile things from right behind me to get me riled up. Oh man, my skin was crawling with rage, but I soldiered on. Sure enough, he finally got loud enough that the other students were trying to get him to shut up, and when the teacher returned, Metro just ducked behind me and amazingly went unnoticed. But as soon as the teacher sat down, he stood back up and started shoving my chair. So I released a plastic sandwich bag, puffed up like a balloon and sealed, onto the floor while he wasn't looking. With what I was later told was a look of absolute glee and absolutely no hesitation, Metro hopped into the air and stomped on it with all his might. Now, I might have a somewhat exaggerated startle reflex, but this wasn't the first time he tried to spook me. But I still can't fathom how he didn't for a second think the serendipity of a blown-up sandwich bag right behind his favorite target was staged. Even so, it was the last straw. Our English teacher, furious, slammed his fist on his desk and sent Metro to detention. And I had a whole week of blissful Metro-free days. There were some roadblocks afterwards. When Metro came back, he doubled down, but by then I had gotten my parents to get my therapist to speak to the school on my behalf. He needed their permission because I was still a minor, so Metro was transferred to a different class block. He continued to try and make my life hell, but quickly ran out of steam as it wasn't as easy anymore. 4. So during the first semester of senior year, I signed up for this class called Team Sports, which was one of the biggest mistakes of my life. It's actually a really long story, and I might share another day. Let's just say I was not prepared for the shit show that went down that semester. The thing is, I was unaware that girls apparently don't sign up for this class. I joined the class because, to quote a random guy I overheard yesterday, I get credit for playing basketball. For the first few weeks, it was pretty fun. We played a lot of knockout and kickball, which are two of my favorite games. There was even this guy in my class who would sometimes go out of his way to help me score because I'm kinda shit at sports. After the kickball unit, my coach decided to throw shit at the wall and turned every day into a free day, which basically meant do whatever you want. So the guys in my class would just play half-court basketball every day. This is when the class stopped being fun. I'm not a huge fan of structured gym classes. But after our coach stopped making us play team sports, it was every person for themselves, and by that, I meant just me. Now the guys weren't required to let me play with them. They didn't. A lot of times they would do everything just to keep me out of their games. Fast forward 2.5 months, and I have managed to somewhat befriend one of the guys in my class. This was extremely helpful, because he would sort of advocate for me, which resulted in the other guys reluctantly agreeing to let me play. By now, there were about 3 weeks left in the semester, and I was finally enjoying the class again. A week later, some of the guys got fed up, and every class would begin with a huge-ass argument about whether I should get to play or not. This really pissed off the guys who weren't arguing and just wanted to play, so some of them started siding with me just to get everyone to shut up and start the game. One day I made a deal with them. The deal was that if I could steal the ball from someone during the next game, I would get to play for the rest of the semester without having to listen to them bitch about it. And if I couldn't, I would sit out for the rest. Obviously, this deal was very appealing to them because they had the advantage. I've never really been an aggressive basketball player, but for the next 10 minutes I played like my life depended on it. At one point I accidentally knocked someone over, although I think part of it was just him being super dramatic. Anyway, I never make bets like these because I'm extremely unlucky, and I never win them even if I think I can. I made this one out of desperation. I did not think I would win. And yet, life is always full of surprises. I managed to steal the ball near the end of the game, which I'm not ashamed to say was the proudest moment of my life. The score was like 19-18 or something, which meant that one more shot could have lost me the bet. And they didn't even finish the game, which told me they were beyond livid because they were definitely not the type to leave a game unfinished, especially with a score that close. For the rest of the day, I got super cocky and started rubbing my victory in their faces. I was so happy that I finally one-upped them after all those weeks that I became downright delusional, thinking I changed the game for women all over the world, and that this event would go down in history or something. Fast forward to the next gym class. The guys suddenly decided they didn't want to play basketball anymore. I don't even know what to say at this point, other than I'm not sure who actually got revenge in this situation. 5. The characters are as follows: Brit, female and 24, Ash, a non-binary 25-year-old, and Duncan, a 20-year-old male. I was 19, and female to male. Duncan doesn't come in until later, but I moved in with Brit and Ash in a roommate situation around June of 2021. We were good friends, and I needed to get myself and my baby, 1-year-old, out of a bad situation. The split for rent and utilities was cheap enough. We all agreed to pitch in for food and drinks. We all had our own jobs to do on certain days. We basically treated it like our own little family. Brit had given me a bad feeling when I first met her. She was clingy, easy to anger, and threatened violence when she was upset. But she knew I had BPD and didn't see the signs that she'd actually hurt someone. When I moved in, I learned I was wrong. Brit and Ash would bicker in almost every conversation, had screaming matches at least twice a week. Brit got physically violent, and I always ended up comforting and cleaning up Ash in the end. It was stressful on me and the baby. I barely slept, and it messed with my milk production. Overall, just not a good situation to start with. I was using food stamps when I moved in. I only got enough to use for one adult and one infant, toddler. At first, I'd buy a good bit of food, whatever the baby needed, and then some snacks for everyone. While we all bought food separately, we were allowed to use it. I was the one who cooked. We always ate dinner together. Brit would clean, Ash would leave for work. Eventually, Brit stopped cleaning, so it fell on me. She was just too overwhelmed to do the dishes. They then started asking for my food stamps card for gas station runs, then flat out took it from my wallet without asking. Sometimes they'd hoard whatever they bought with it in their bedroom. All the while, Brit got more aggressive with me, refused to let me join in conversations in the living room, and started saddling me with even more of the housework. Brit started to mess with my things shortly after Duncan moved in. He was nice, kind of reserved, but I enjoyed hanging out with him. He put in the effort to include me in things. Brit didn't like that, and got passive-aggressive with it. If I left a soda can on the counter while I changed the baby, she'd pour it out immediately. If I left my laptop open in the kitchen, she'd take it and literally throw it onto my bed. One day I came home to all of my expensive pumping equipment and lactation supplements dumped onto my floor. What did she say about that one? "It's gross that guests have to see that stuff." When my food stamps card declined only a week after recharge, I decided I needed to move out. I still had my old apartment and was still paying for it. It would take a week or two, but I planned to move back there. Started packing my stuff and making sure it was ready to go. Brit was pissed at me, refused to talk to me, and apparently told Ash 6 days in that I said they can't touch or talk to my baby. I never said that. I'm not a dick of that thickness. Ash asked me about it, and I told her the truth, and we decided to keep it civil and stay friends. We sat with each other, sharing funny TikTok videos, until a text popped up on the screen from Brit. It said, "Thanks a lot, Ash. Now the bitch will try and stay." That was it. I was moving now. I called my mother, a few friends, and decided I would take everything paid for with my money. I took both of my TVs, most of my cookware and cutlery, the coffee table and end table, the outside chairs, all of the organizers in the bathroom, not to mention the plunger. I almost cleared the fridge and cabinets of food and took it all with me. My bedroom was bare. So was the living room, since I bought most of the decor. Half the blankets in the house were mine. I'm very tiny and get cold easily. I'd already paid for the month, but didn't ask for the last half back. They probably already blew it on weed. Nothing against it, I smoked too, they were just constantly high. I just left, all of my stuff packed into multiple vehicles and on down the road. I didn't hear anything from them, besides a string of crude texts, saying they'd call CPS and lie to them if I didn't pay for another month. They were going to get kicked out. It never happened, that I know of. What brought this back to my mind was a few weeks ago, when Duncan messaged me on Facebook. He asked how I was doing. I asked the same. Then he told me he moved away from the roommates. He said he understood why I left now, that the fighting got worse and the house was in a shambles. They never cleaned, and Duncan couldn't do it all himself, and the mess kept him from moving his toddler in with them. Britt got jealous of them being friends, and Ash started lashing out. He couldn't take it anymore, and dipped the same way I did. From what I know, Ash lost her last job, and Britt works at the piercing shop. They're living off of Ash's rich father. Their relationship is at breaking point. Can't say I feel sorry for them. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Revenge is Ice Cream, episode 217. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Before you go on, please do hit the like button and share the video with friends and family. I greatly appreciate it. And we have a little birthday shout out to do today. Yes, the 26th we have. Today's shout out goes to HippoArts36. A very happy birthday to you, HippoArts, and greatly appreciate that you sent the message in very early. I got this one in August, actually, last year. So the very least I can do is not forget it. Hope you're going to have a great birthday today, and make sure you take a few days just to spoil yourself as well. Everybody deserves time in their birthday. And I hope you get to do all the wonderful things that you enjoy doing, and maybe don't have time for the rest of the time. Okay, before we go, I'd like to sing Happy Birthday. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, HippoArts36. Happy birthday to you. Alrighty, and now we'll move right along to Hellfreezer's question of the day. And what is your internet guilty pleasure? I'm going to mention two. Both of them are actually on Twitter, but it doesn't have to be a Twitter thing. One is something I recently came across called Fesshole. I'm sure a lot of you have seen it as well. If you haven't, it's a Twitter account where people send confessions in. I think there's a form or something to fill out. And they're then posted anonymously by this account. Some of them are hilarious, some of them are a little bit naughty, and others are kind of sad. But obviously I especially love the funny ones. And in a similar vein, in terms that, they kind of run the gamut emotionally, there's also an account out there called ScanBC, which is simply someone posting reports from the police scanner in British Columbia and Canada. And again, you hear all the silly things that some people get up to. And then, of course, there are very serious reports where there's been accidents and such as well. But I'm mostly there for the funny ones. If you're willing, please do let me know what yours are. I might find something new to distract me when I should be working. And with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.